Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Greetings. Welcome to my channel. Today I will be continuing on telling my story and my journey. In the previous part, I did explain about the doctor telling my parents that I can't see or hear. So today I will be continuing with part 3. I do suggest that you begin watching part 1 so you can stay up to date and keep up with my story. So in today's part, it's been 4 or 5 months and I've been home. My parents have been adjusting to taking care of a special needs child. So parents had an older child already, and we don't remember why they had to take my older sibling to the doctor. And keep in mind, they took me with them because they didn't have family. They didn't know anyone, and I was in special needs, so they didn't want to leave me recommended with just a person, and my mom being paranoid of the person taking care of me could do something wrong with me, and could end up in not a great ending. So, they decided to take me with them to the doctor. The doctor visit was great. I don't know if it was a couple of days later or a week later. I started getting congested, like my body's not being how it usually is. And they decided to take me to the ER to make sure that I was okay, or if anything was wrong with me, to take actions. Because remember, I had been paralyzed at birth, so they had to take extra precautions with me and take action ASAP so things don't turn out wrong. So they took me to the ER and they examined me, and guess what? My life just gets worse. I ended up getting the RSV virus. If you don't know what this virus is basically it affects your lungs and your respiratory system. My lungs were not working properly. They were collecting a lot of mucus. I was choking a lot. My lungs started collapsing, and it was not a great situation to be in. So my parents have another thing to worry about. Basically, from that day that I went in, I was admitted and ended up staying in the hospital for about 3 months because I was put back in the ICU, and I stayed there for about 3 months, and I was in a very bad situation. And keep in mind that I was paralyzed, and my paralyzation is crossed from my left arm to my right leg, which that interferes my lungs, which is not something good. Being in the hospital for about a month, they ended up taking the decision and telling my parents, since your daughter is not breathing well, is choking a lot, is having lung problems, a lot of congestion, and all these things, we suggest that your daughter gets a trachea. If you don't know what a trachea is, I will be inserting a picture here. Basically what that is a little surgery here. That was my way of breathing. So my parents ended up talking, and they decided to say, well, whatever saves my daughter and helps my daughter and makes her life a bit easier, we give the consent for you to take it. So they took me in, and I went in with no hole, and I came back with a hole. And at that time I was about 6 months, we believe, and I ended up staying 2 extra months additionally to the 1 month that I was in there already. My body had to get adjusted to it and see if it would accept it or reject it. So after that, they saw my body had accepted it and there was no additional concerns or things to worry about. They started like training my parents on basically helping them and training them by guiding them and showing them how they were supposed to take care of this new device equipment that was inserted in me for the day that I was released to be able to go home with them. My mom, they were offered to have nurses stay with me and all this. My parents rejected that because they were paranoid that something could happen to me. Sometimes caregivers are not as the person you may think they are and may end up hurting the patient they're taking care of, and such all the bad news they already had. They didn't want to jeopardize what they had already, and they took turns on taking care of me. And yeah, so because I did have that inserted and all the respiratory, all the hole that I had here now, it affects, the esophagus and stuff. I did lose my ability to eat. And that is another thing to worry about. Basically, my story, my life, and my parents' life was my mom ended up, and she basically prayed to God and ended up actually like telling God, like, I see my daughter like going through all this and suffering and being plugged in, and and said, like, you know what, God, as hard as this sounds, she basically told God, like, my poor baby is suffering and going through all this, and it's not a great thing to see and be experiencing this. And she told him, like, look, God, if she's not meant to be with me, I hand her to you, although with all the pain and everything that I've gone through and I will go through if you do decide to take my poor baby. I don't want to continue seeing her suffer and going through this, because keep in mind, my life is not getting any better. It's just getting worse, and one thing on top of another, on top of another, on top of another, which is not great. And she told God, if I was not meant to be here, with all the pain and all the respect and everything, you can take her, as devastating and hurtful that sounds, but I don't want to see my poor baby continue suffering. this is where I will be leaving this part. I hope you are enjoying this series that I am doing about my life. I do apologize for getting emotional. Just keep in mind I am telling my story, and it's my story, and it's something I went through as well as my parents. It's not something that anyone should go through, and if you are going through it, I believe in you, and I believe in your child or the person that is going through this. It's not a very fun road to be on, but keep positive, believe, pray, and be praying for you if you do want to continue seeing this series and the next parts to stay up to date with my life and my journey. Involved with my story and get to know how I had an initial life and my whole journey. Don't forget to like, comment, share. Love you guys. Stay positive.